Hello my friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, getting right back into my Halloween series. If you missed it, amidst the bajillion videos I posted in the last couple months, I'll link to the playlist because I've already done about a dozen Halloween themed videos so far. So this one has been a while coming. I've had this idea just brewing for so long. I used Simon Says Stamps Giant Hugs card wrap wafer dies, which were released last September. They're still available. And they're meant to like create these folding hands so you can like send hugs, you know, like they're really cute. But I didn't want to go cute. I wanted to go completely twisted. And just this idea, like I said, it's been brewing. So I used the wafer dies to die cut all these little hugging hands from some Distress HEAVYSTOCK. And then I am spraying them just a mess because I want to create zombie skin. So I'm using Distress Oxide sprays, and I'll link, like always, to the specific colors. But it was pumice stone, hickory smoke, walnut stain, crushed olive, black soot, and candied apple. And just splattering the heck out of these. Working in my little splat box, got my little bamboo paper towel in there just because when I'm working with a bunch of sprays, it just kind of soaks up some of the excess liquid so I don't have like blobs of liquid everywhere. Cause yeah, my Distress or my splat box has built up quite the coating since I first got it. What was that, like 2 years ago? I forget when these first were a thing. Best $5 I ever spent. Seriously, it's worth it. I know other people use just regular like shipping boxes because of course we all have tons of those. Whatever floats your boat. But I like my little splat box and it comes in handy and it sits nicely under my desk. So I still do the bamboo paper towel though because again, tons of liquid and I would be the type too. There'd be like blobs of liquid and I would spill that all over myself when I move the box, you know? So anywho, I'm just kind of working in layers. Just spraying. There's no order to it. Like, it's zombie skin. You can do whatever you want. Literally. I had so much fun making this card. And again, if I had more time, I would have made multiples of them because it was so fun. And you just don't, as always, like you don't have to worry about perfection. Perfection's overrated. These are definitely not clean and simple. So you don't need to worry about like smears or things getting where like make a mess and have fun with it. So I just kept splattering and I did both sides of these because you're going to see both sides, you know, when I curl up the fingers and all that stuff. And I'm just using my little Ranger Heat It tool to dry everything. People have been asking me about that. Like, you know, do I recommend it versus just using your embossing tool? They're similar but different. The Heat It tool, it doesn't blow as much hot air. It gets the same temperature, but because it's so much wider and just it's quieter, and I like it for drying things, whereas my actual, you know, embossing tool is for heat embossing, like melting embossing powder. So again, though, to each their own. Yeah. So anywho, I made all my little zombie hands, set those aside, and then I die cut some green cardstock with the Grassy Edges wafer die. And I die cut a bunch of pieces with that. And then I'm just blending Oxide inks onto it. I'm using like Rustic Wilderness, peeled paint, and then I'm going to add some ground espresso. And my ink pads are being held in these little holders from the ink stand. And I mention that because people always ask when I show this in videos. I always link to it. Those rare times that I forget to link something, you guys can always let me know in the comments. But I always try to remember to link to just absolutely everything. Just, you know, makes life easier. That was the whole point that I started my blog and my YouTube channel and everything way back, you know, eons ago, was so people could find all the things. So I did that blending on the grass, and same thing. Dirty, messy, don't want it to be perfect. And then the other pièce de résistance is the Love Your Guts wafer die. This was just, it was so perfect. You know, when the ideas and the products in my head started coming together, I was like, oh yes. I actually used this wafer die. Oh gosh, this was months ago, and I made, I think, didn't I use butterflies? I think I used butterflies. I'll have to look and see if I can find it on my channel, and I'll link to it as well. You know, it was like pink and gray, you know, just a cute card. It was like, love your guts, you know, love you. Yeah, I'm using it in a different way this time. And it's just, it's just too perfect. So I die cut it multiple times from Schoolhouse Red cardstock, stacked the layers together, die cut the outline from Simon's Smoke cardstock, and then added more Oxide inks, again, just messy, like brown and gray and black, just to keep everything. I don't want it to look clean. I don't want it to look perfect, like everything. It needs to be a mess. That's the whole point. So once I had all these elements ready to go, I'm going to start adhering all the things. So I have just a green panel of cardstock that I had, done a bit of ink blending at the top. And then I'm adhering all these pieces with the grass, and same thing, I'm like messing up the edges of like the actual grass, like curling them up and bending them back and all that stuff so that it's not, so it's not perfect. And I'm only applying adhesive to kind of the bottom portion of each piece. I want there to be an opening because I'm going to tuck things in there. So once I've got everything layered with the grass, then I'm going to start putting the hands in place. The whole mental image of this, I was thinking like almost, graveyard or just the ground, the zombie hands are starting to come out and reach for the peoples. So yeah. I had fun. Again, I had so much fun with this. So just went along tucking them in. This is a bigger card too. The finished card ended up being a 5x7 card because I wanted to have enough space because these, again, Giant Hugs card wrap wafer dies, they're meant, to fit across an A2 card, do that whole cute little fold/hug. So they're quite big. So I wanted the card to be big enough so I could have several of these, peeking out. So I just kept tucking them in, curling up the fingers. Everything curled up really nicely because these pieces were so saturated with all that Oxide ink. Like I let everything completely dry and then, just curled them. I was originally going to add bits of like foam tape to like adhere down the fingers, like, curl them up and adhere them down and everything. But as I was adhering everything into place, I was like, I like this just the way it is. Like I don't want anything adhered like with the fingers. I like that they're just all over the place, as it should be. So once I had those in place, I adhered the Love Your Guts sentiment with some foam squares. And then I'm also using some reverse spooky sentiments because this one was perfect. This like tied all together when these came out with this year's Stamptember release. Yeah. And I was like, it's zombie season. Oh, and then it just like dominoes, things started to fall together and I was like, I need to make this card. So I trimmed them down, the ones I wanted to use, and then I just used Copic markers to add a bit of color. So I used some red and some green, and then I took my Memento Tuxedo Black marker to run across the edges of these pieces so it coats that exposed white cardstock because I don't want that showing up because there's like no white cardstock on this card at all. So I just went along the edges of that with my Memento Tuxedo Black marker. So then I was going to start to adhere the sentiment strip. I was going to pop it on with little foam squares, but then was like, ooh, this needs more. So before I adhere the sentiment strip, I'm going to put this card front back into my splat box and I'm going to add a ton of splatter. So for that, I'm going to use some distress paints. Honestly, it's my preferred way to splatter. I splatter with all the things, like watercolors and Distress Oxide sprays and all the things. But there's something about the way paints splatter the best. I don't know. So I used weathered wood because I didn't have hickory smoke. So I mixed weathered wood with black soot and just splattered the Ever-Living Daylights all over the card front. And then same thing with the brown. I think this was Gathered Twigs paint. Ranger retired or discontinued several colors, like quite a few colors of the distress paints. So I don't think Gathered Twigs is available anymore, but I would have used ground espresso anyway, but I don't have that. So same thing, mixed a bit of black with that, works. And then black soot splatter, of course. And then for the candy apple paint splatter, same thing. I'm going to add some of the black and some of my dirty paint water just to deepen it up because I didn't want it like, again, that bright red. So mixed in the, random dirty colors in there, got it to kind of a nice color, honestly. And there's actually, you can't see it on camera. I could see it in, like where I was sitting, the way the light was shining. I was like, why is there like this, like a little bit of gold iridescence to it? And it was because it was the paint water that I'd used when I did my last video for Stamptember, and I did gold splatter. So there's like gold shimmer technically in all of this paint splatter, but you can't actually see it. But I could, and it just kind of threw me off for a second. I was like, ooh, I still, even though you can't see it, I still got some gold splatter on this card. This is where my mind goes all the time. The weirdest things just make me happy. So anywho, I let the splatter dry. I adhered my sentiment. And then I have another piece of Schoolhouse Red cardstock to matte, like the main thing. But I didn't, again, want that bright red. So I just took the black soot, Oxide ink pad, and my blending brush, and just kind of did a rough, you know, inking along the edges. Doesn't need to be perfect. You're only going to see the outer edge anyway, but it's just going to, you know, mess it up a bit and make it tie into everything else. Added a bit of that to the edges of the card front while I was at it. And then I can adhere these together. So then I've got my card front complete. And then my card base is Simon's Slate Gray cardstock, and that I had cut down to 10 inches. Yeah, 10 inches by 7, and I score it at 5 inches because this will be a 5 by 7 card. So had it trimmed down, score it with my Teflon bone folder and my little score buddy. So I've got my card base. This I didn't do any blending on because I just went with, you know, really nice dark gray. And then on the inside of the card, I'm going to adhere those other 2 little sentiment strips that I had colored with the Copic markers. And that's it for the inside. Like, kept it pretty simple since the outside's got quite a bit going on. So yeah, you're so cool, it's creepy. Happy Halloween. So I got those adhered. And then I'm going to adhere the card front to the card base. And that's it. No other embellishments. I honestly thought about it. I was like, ooh, I could add bling to this. Why not? But the splatter and the zombie hands, the sentiment, you know, I wanted the focus to be on that because hello zombies. So no other embellishments. And again, like, this was just fun. It's kind of fun when you have those random ideas in your head for a card, and then you start putting it together and it starts like turning out what you thought in your head. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I had fun making it. Like I said, I will have links to everything in the description box below the video. I'll also, as always, have a link to my blog post for this card. It's always a direct link, so you guys don't have to hop around. And then on my blog, it's always like picture links, making everything easy to find. So you can check that out below if you are interested. Thank you all so much for watching, subscribing, thumbs upping, commenting. I very much appreciate it. And I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye!